I'm Reverend Paula Skiles, and I'm joined by one of my favorite people, Diana Kern, who's a part of my church. And we're going to be doing kind of a Inquiring Minds Want to Know. And Diana has some questions, and so we're going to try to address those questions and allow you to know a little bit about Unity, a little bit about me as a minister, and what things might be of interest. And we'll see if maybe we can answer some questions you might have as well.
Right. Well, my first question is, I'm always curious to know how ministers, any religion, although we don't think this as religion, react with theirs, and they see this person up there, who's not a real person. And with Unity, for me, it's always been, hey, Paula, we don't call you Reverend all the time, and it's so comfortable. And I was raised Catholic, and I loved my Catholic world. I loved Catholicism, and I still do. So I'm probably one of those unusual people. And but I went to a Catholic school all the way through, so we were all very, very close to each other back then when there were nuns. So I'm just curious how you discovered this, what it was that brought you in, and just that kind of thing.
All right. Well, that actually is a really big question. I was in my 20s, I was about 24 years old, and I had been enamored, it'd be the best word, with the Bible since I was like 9. And I used to read it, and one of my prayers, deep heart prayers, was, God, help me to understand the Bible as a young child. And because, just reading those big words and all of this, the language in the King James, because that was all I had back then,
You're so young.
was very difficult to understand. And I didn't have anyone in my particular sphere of influence, people that were close to me, who wanted to, or either could or did, take time to explain things to me. But I loved to read, and I loved reading the stories in the Bible. They just confused me sometimes, and sometimes I just couldn't quite get it. And I remember one of the things that I liked about it was it was filled with people who had dreams. And I remember my dreams were important to me. Don't know why, but I was very young knowing my dreams were important. And not like big sense, but like for my own understanding. And the Bible is filled with dreams. And dream interpretation and that kind of stuff, and so that was I guess you could say my calling was at a very young age.
Yes, I would say so.
Really, very young age, and I was trying to interpret my dreams by the time I entered my teens, and what they basically talked about, or the study of dreams, is something that also was kind of like, it was a call on my heart, right? It was just like this, it just seemed like it was so important. And over the years, it has been important. It's been important for my spiritual growth, for prophecy. It's been important for understanding who I am. Because I have a couple of different types of dreams. I have dreams that are prophetic. I have dreams that are telling me the truth about who I am. And then I also have dreams that open me up to understanding more about the spiritual realm. For example, just a little example. Angels. Okay? I had a revelation in one of my dreams where Spirit spoke to me and basically said, and it was basically, the only reason you don't see angels walking about like we do right beside us is because they vibrate at a different rate than our brain normally sees. Their vibration levels, like we vibrate. We may look like we're sitting here solid, but we're sitting here vibrating.
The energy's moving.
And all of our cells and molecules are vibrating quickly, but the spiritual realm, so to speak, is at a different vibrational level than what our waking mind can normally comprehend. All right. So that was just one example of an understanding that came to me. And so I could go into that. But so my calling was and has been a process. And I got to a point where I basically had an experience, a spiritual experience, where I connected with Christ. Complete connection. And knew I was there. It was in this most transcendent, unconditional love. I mean, it was just powerful. And basically was given not a command, but just I was left with, I have to share. I have to let people know about this.
Right.
You know, this is so, I mean, the things that were given to me in that understanding. Powerful. And within a couple of weeks, I was going to a uni church at that time. And within a couple of weeks, I had people asking me, "Are you a minister?" Asking me to come speak at their church. I mean, out of left field. I was not a minister at that time.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I just knew, that's the way I'm supposed to do it. That is how I'm supposed to share the message that Christ gave me. And so...
And you were in your 20s?
Yes.
Yeah, that's young.
Yes, I was.
Yes. In my 20s, I didn't know anything.
Well, how I even got to Unity is kind of interesting because I had a friend, and he and I, we never evolved into a couple, but we cared a great deal about each other. And he was attending Unity and asked me if I wanted to go to church with him. And so when I went to church, it was very nice at first. I went to Unity Church in Houston, and it was the Unity Church of Christianity there, Unity of Houston. And it was this wonderful, great big church, and it had this pyramid that was the sanctuary.
I've heard of that. Don't they call that the Golden Pyramid?
They called it the Golden Pyramid. Okay. Yes. And this young man, because he wasn't much older than me, thank goodness he was very good looking, because I had been raised in much more conservative, I guess would be the word, religion than what Unity is. Unity is more of a liberal progressive type of religious Christianity. Okay, and I had been raised with all of the churches that were like Baptist or Church of Christ or Pentecost and Catholicism and different things like that. I had not ever been raised in a specific church. I'd been allowed to go to different ones, but my family members were, one was Catholic and one was Pentecost. So obviously family members would take me to church every now and then, but that's the way that came down. So when I sat in my first Unity church service and they took a time to do meditation, oh my gosh, it terrified me. I mean, it truly did, because there was this big fear that just jumped right up, and it was like, oh my God, they're brainwashing these people, and
funny.
because I knew nothing about meditation, and and when he was talking about close your eyes, and then he would get into this kind of meditative thing, it was just so different than anything I've ever experienced. Of course, there was this, I guess you could say, revelation that came to me a short time later that said, your brain needs a little washing.
Let's clean this out.
Let's just say I probably had a number of very rigid ideas about religious ideas anyway. And, but they weren't suitable for the message Christ gave me. They weren't suitable formats, whereas Unity is. Unity is, well, when I first entered it, we called it Unity, which was the Church of Practical Christianity. And when Charles and Myrtle, who are our co-founders, started Unity, they really didn't start out to create churches or a religious movement per se. They really were people who met in homes to just create a better understanding for Christianity itself, so that if you were a Catholic, you were a better Catholic. If you were a Protestant of any denomination, you were a better Protestant. And the whole idea of Unity was that it took a number of important spiritual beliefs and incorporated them all into one, which is what Unity is.
Yes.
So,
Unity.
So Charles and Myrtle looked at a variety of religious organizations, if you will. And there's a little bit of Buddhist mindset in our thinking there with the meditation, and there's a little bit of Catholicism with some of the ritual that we have, which is not all Unity though, but many of the Unity churches have some of these rituals that we do, like burning bowl or the candle lighting or some of those things, or the gratitude services. So we have our rituals. They're just different than some of the other churches.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so what Charles and Myrtle wanted to do was to create a dynamic, if you will, that if you were a part of Unity, made you a better Christian. And so the whole idea was practical Christianity, was to take the Bible, make it practical, make it something you could understand, make the least amount of dogma, so we have no dogma. We do have a few credos that we follow, but those are simply credos. All right, they are part of our beliefs, and we don't have a whole lot, because what we really try to do is to allow for the understanding that you can go direct to headquarters. There's no intercessory here. God is right here, and God is within you, and God is willing to talk to you if you're willing to listen.
If you're willing to listen.
And that was new for me.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
But when I finally got it, it was like, oh yeah, you know? And so that called me into Unity. So by the time I had been in Unity probably 10 years or so at least before I felt my calling into ministry.
And you went on a regular basis
I did.
to the church.
I did. Yeah. Well, as regular as I could. I mean, I had 2 young children, and I was a single mom, and so, you know, as regular as I could, which is most Sundays. Most Sundays. Those of us who have families,
That's what
we know how, when kids are sick or when,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. But it was, yes, very regular. And so, you know, my experience of Unity, to make it practical for me, particularly, was the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. When I opened that book and started reading how Charles had taken the Hebrew or Greek names and places in the Bible and ascribed the meanings that they had into kind of a narrative, and helping to take those stories with that narrative.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it was powerfully changing for me. Because my prayer that I had prayed so earnestly as a child had been answered.
Right.
I could understand the Bible.
Right. And you understood how to live your narrative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My prayer not only had been answered, but profoundly answered. And it changed me so much that it's part of how I do ministry. I think you've probably noticed that I try to include Bible in almost all of my messages. And so it is it is, to me, it is one of the cornerstones of Unity. It is a cornerstone of our belief system.
Right.
Is the understanding that the Bible is my story. It's your story. Of our spiritual maturation from, let's just say, from a level of an Adam thinking, where just very material, you know, just concerned with getting by and surviving and just doing my day to day, and not really having a connection to spirit, and not really having that sense of you know, that God is truly present within me, and that kind of thing. All right, so it made such a difference to me because it helped me to overcome the belief systems that I had with real truth and real knowledge inside. You know, there is a level of knowledge that we all have, and that's something that's called education, and we are taught things. But when you learn to meditate, when you learn to let Spirit reveal and draw forth from within you understanding and truth, the knowledge you receive there is so different. I mean, it's just...
I understand.
Yeah, it is. It changes you, even on a cellular level. It changes your beliefs and brings them into being a more coherent and integral to Spirit, to God.
Yes.
In integrity with what Spirit is. And instead of it being human-made rules, or I have to do this because my religion says I'm supposed to, or it changes all that into you have a real abiding relationship, a communication, a conversation,
personal
a real
connection.
Conversation, versus, well, I think this is what I'm supposed to believe because this is what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's your personal truth that.
And there's a difference between my personal truth and knowledge and awareness and God as truth, revealing. There's a big difference. I mean, it is. And so, I don't know if I've completely answered your question, but that's kind of how I got into unity, and that's, you know, I just happen to have a calling, I think, and didn't even realize it until it was just give this to my children. Give this to my children.
Well, I mean, I've never met anybody that was interested in the Bible. It was so young. I mean, when we were reading, you know, Dick and Jane and whatever. And well, we read a lot about, you know, Mary and Jesus and, you know, that kind of thing.
Guess what? This is
Well, that's
time.
too fast.
I know, it just went so quickly.
And this is Birdie, everybody.
Yes,
See
Birdie
Birdie?
is my little mini dachshund. And of course, Moon, you probably can't see her, but she's laying down here chilling with us as well. Diana, thank you so much for
Oh, thank you,
being
Paula.
a part of this and helping our members and people who are sharing with us online to get a greater sense of not only who I am as a minister, but also what unity is really about.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Birdie.